Ever wondered who BTS really are when the stadium lights dim and the cameras stop rolling? We see their flawless performances, but what do their closest staff, bodyguards, and producers secretly say about them behind closed doors? Are they truly the humble kings we believe them to be? Or is there a hidden, unfiltered side the media never shows? Who silently cries when no one is watching, and who is actually the intimidating mastermind off stage? Prepare to have your mind blown as we expose the raw truth.
Number 7. Jimin. The ethereal swan's secret agony, a breathtaking obsession with perfection. When the stadium lights dim and the deafening roar of tens of thousands of armies begins to fade into the night, the world sees Park Jimin as an ethereal, untouchable being, a natural-born genius who glides across the stage with the effortless grace of a swan. But what do the people who actually share his breathing space, the bodyguards, the flight attendants, the exhausted backstage crew, really say about him when the cameras stop rolling? Prepare to have your heart shattered and rebuilt, because the unfiltered truth about Jimin is far more intense, devastatingly emotional, and inspiring than any perfectly crafted media narrative. Flight attendants who have served BTS on grueling long-haul private flights have repeatedly broken their professional silence just to share one glaring, undeniable truth about Jimin. He is shockingly, almost impossibly humble in a world that practically begs him to be arrogant. While most global superstars of his caliber treat airplane cabins like personal hotel rooms, leaving behind a chaotic trail of entitlement and messy demands, insiders reveal that Jimin operates on a completely different frequency of human decency. One veteran flight attendant recalled a staggering moment when she went to clean up his seating area after an exhausting 14-hour international flight, fully expecting the usual celebrity aftermath, only to find that Jimin had already meticulously folded his blankets, neatly stacked his pillows, and organized all of his trash into a single, easy-to-manage pile. He didn't just walk away into the VIP terminal. He actively stayed behind to bow respectfully to the cabin crew, making deep, sincere eye contact and thanking them for their service with a soft, exhausted smile that genuinely moved the staff to tears. But this profound, innate politeness masks a much darker, intensely heartbreaking reality that only his closest producers, choreographers, and backup dancers truly understand. Behind closed doors, Jimin is a relentless, unforgiving perfectionist to the point of absolute physical and emotional self-destruction. A former entertainment staff member confessed that during the highly demanding blood, sweat, and tears and fake love eras, the management literally had to force Jimin to stop practicing because his body was on the verge of entirely shutting down. He would intentionally stay behind in the suffocatingly small, humid underground practice rooms until 4 or 5 in the morning, long after the other members had gone to sleep, brutally and obsessively repeating a single spin, a complex jump, or a vocal run hundreds of times until his muscles cramped, his throat bled, and his lungs gave out. Why does he do this to himself? Because the paralyzing fear of disappointing his fans or being the weak link of the group consumes him entirely. Choreographers have leaked that Jimin is by far his own worst critic, possessing a truly agonizing habit of violently tearing himself down over a micro mistake, a foot placed 1 inch out of line, a voice crack so microscopic it didn't even register on the soundboard that nobody else in the arena even noticed. It is this sheer, terrifying obsession with perfection that makes his live performances so legendary, yet it is an incredibly heavy, solitary cross to bear. Bodyguards who have shadowed him for years speak of a duality that is genuinely hard to witness without tearing up. On stage, he commands tens of thousands of screaming fans with blinding, godlike charisma, but the exact second the mechanical stage lift lowers him into the dark backstage abyss, out of the fans' sight, the invincible persona instantly shatters.
The security staff have seen him literally collapse onto the cold concrete floor, gasping desperately for air, sometimes even requiring emergency medical attention and an oxygen tank just to regain his vision. Yet the moment a worried staff member or a fellow BTS brother approaches to check on his vitals, he immediately waves them off, aggressively swallowing his pain and flashing a reassuring, bright smile because he absolutely hates making anyone worry about him. This overwhelming, almost sacrificial empathy is a common thread in absolutely every insider story ever told about him. Music video directors and production crews who have worked closely with BTS on grueling multi-day shoots note that Jimin is hyper-aware of the crew's suffering, often more so than his own. During freezing outdoor winter shoots where the temperature severely dropped below zero, Jimin was caught on multiple occasions secretly buying hundreds of hot packs, warm coffees, and hearty meals out of his own pocket, silently and anonymously distributing them to the lowest-ranking staff members, the freezing camera operators, and the exhausted lighting crew before he even thought about warming himself up in the artist tent. He doesn't do it for the cameras or the behind-the-scenes vlogs. In fact, insiders say he gets incredibly shy, flustered, and physically deflects attention if he is ever caught in the act of being kind, preferring his good deeds to remain completely in the shadows. Beyond his physical endurance, he is famously known among the staff as the emotional glue holding the entire group together, the silent guardian who is always the first one to slip into another member's room if he intuitively senses they are having a mental breakdown or struggling with the immense pressure of their fame. One insider recalled an incredibly touching moment when a fellow member was crying alone in the dark over a deep personal hardship. Jimin didn't offer empty platitudes or say a single word. He just quietly walked in, wrapped himself around his brother, and stayed there in total silence for hours until the tears finally stopped, absorbing the pain of everyone around him while viciously fighting his own crippling insecurities in absolute silence. It's this heart-wrenching dichotomy, the deeply sensitive boy who gives unconditional, boundless love to everyone around him, but severely struggles to give even a fraction of that love to himself, that makes Jimin's real personality so profoundly moving. The media constantly paints him as a natural-born genius, a miraculous talent blessed by the universe, but the insiders know the brutal, unglamorous truth. Beneath the sparkling surface, he is paddling furiously, bleeding, sweating, and pushing his physical and mental limits to the absolute brink, sacrificing his own youth and comfort, all to maintain the beautiful illusion for the world. So the next time you see Park Jimin hit that impossible high note or execute a flawlessly gravity-defying spin, remember the invisible scars, the agonizing sleepless nights, the quietly folded airplane blankets, and the silent tears in the dark that built that very moment. This is not just raw talent. This is a beautiful, terrifying, and deeply human obsession that demands our utmost, unwavering respect, proving that he is not just a global idol, but an incredibly rare golden soul who sets himself on fire just to ensure the world around him shines just a little bit brighter.
Number 6. V. The misunderstood mastermind, a canvas of deep secrets and silent protection. When the blinding flashbulbs erupt and the world is instantly captivated by the man notoriously dubbed as the most handsome face on the planet, Kim Tae-young, universally known as V, effortlessly projects an aura of intimidating, almost aristocratic royalty. Yet the jaw-dropping reality, detailed by the staff who work in his immediate shadow, paints a completely different, deeply complex portrait of a highly observant mastermind who deliberately hides his sharp intellect behind a charmingly eccentric facade. Have you ever wondered what exactly goes through his mind when he stares blankly into the distance during interviews? To the general public and even the media, Tae-young is often affectionately labeled as the unique one, the free-spirited artist who lives in his own whimsical universe. But if you sit down with the veteran producers, security details, and long-term managers who truly know him behind the closed doors of the Hive building, they will immediately correct this massive misconception, revealing that V is arguably the most socially intelligent and hyper-observant member of the entire group.
A former bodyguard who shadowed BTS during their most chaotic world tours confessed that while the other members might occasionally get overwhelmed by the frantic energy of a mobbed airport, Taehyung possesses a terrifyingly calm, almost eagle-like situational awareness. He is always the very first person to silently scan a room, identify potential threats, and quietly maneuver himself to shield the more vulnerable members or exhausted staff without ever making a scene or demanding credit for his protection. Could his supposed eccentricities actually be a calculated shield to absorb the immense pressure of his environment? This fiercely protective instinct extends far beyond just his bandmates. Numerous behind-the-scenes camera operators and styling assistants have secretly shared heartwarming stories of how Taehyung is deeply, profoundly empathetic toward the invisible workers in the room. During a particularly grueling 48-hour continuous music video shoot where the exhausted junior staff were practically falling asleep on their feet, insiders reported that Taehyung, completely unprompted and far away from any promotional cameras, quietly ordered massive feasts of premium food for the entire crew, specifically making sure that the youngest, lowest-ranking assistants were served first before he even took a single bite himself. What truly shocks the industry veterans, however, is not just his generosity, but his profoundly old soul and staggering depth of character that heavily contrasts with his untouchable, high-fashion exterior. Renowned photographers who have shot global magazine covers with him frequently note that working with V is unlike working with any other pop star. He doesn't just pose, he intimately studies the lighting, the angle, and the exact emotional frequency the director wants, transforming into a completely different character with a single, chilling shift in his gaze, proving that his artistic genius is fiercely calculated and deliberate rather than just a lucky byproduct of his astonishing genetics. But beneath this breathtaking professionalism lies a deeply guarded, highly sensitive boy who fiercely holds on to his humble rural roots. Staff members who have flown with him on private jets reveal a heartbreakingly endearing secret. Despite having the world at his fingertips and millions of dollars in his bank account, Taehyung still finds immense comfort in the simplest, most nostalgic things, often completely ignoring the luxury amenities to quietly watch vintage movies, study obscure classical artists, or silently read books about history while sipping a simple cup of hot tea. His emotional depth is perhaps most evident in the recording studio, where producers have been moved to actual tears by the sheer unadulterated pain and longing he manages to channel into his deep, soulful baritone voice. A close vocal coach once revealed that Taehyung physically carries the emotional weight of his past, heavily influenced by the heartbreaking loss of his beloved grandmother, using the recording booth as his only true, unfiltered sanctuary to bleed out the grief and complex emotions he refuses to burden his members with. How does a person carry such a monumental, silent grief while continually flashing that boxy smile to millions? It is this intense vulnerability, masterfully masked by his striking visuals and quirky humor, that makes him so deeply fascinating to those who know him. He will deliberately act silly or play the fool just to break the tension in a stressful room, willingly sacrificing his cool image to ensure everyone around him feels comfortable and happy. Furthermore, his interactions with obsessive fans or dangerous situations reveal a man of immense fortitude. Insiders note that Taehyung has a zero-tolerance policy for anyone disrespecting his members or his loyal staff, utilizing his incredibly sharp intuition and commanding presence to instantly shut down inappropriate behavior with a single devastatingly stern look that commands absolute respect without a single word being spoken. Flight attendants and high-end hotel managers universally praise him as the absolute epitome of class, noting that he always makes a point to learn the names of the people serving him, looking them directly in the eyes, and treating them not as subordinates, but as complete equals, a staggering rarity in the notoriously elitist entertainment industry. But the layers of his personality dive even deeper when you explore his interactions outside the immediate bubble of the band. Industry insiders who have witnessed him navigating the treacherous waters of celebrity friendships and the relentless pressure of malicious gossip note that Taehyung possesses an almost impenetrable emotional fortress, choosing to handle vile rumors and baseless hate with a dignified, stony silence that heavily frustrates his detractors but earns him the undying respect of his inner circle. Instead of lashing out, he internalizes the chaos, transmuting his frustrations into a ravenous appetite for artistic creation, whether it be secretly painting massive abstract canvases in the dead of night, studying the intricate nuances of vintage jazz musicians, or obsessively capturing the fleeting, raw emotions of his members through the lens of his beloved film cameras. A music video director once vividly recalled a deeply touching moment during a chaotic filming sequence abroad. While the rest of the crew was frantically rushing to set up the next shot, Taehyung was found quietly sitting on a dusty curb, completely captivated by a stray dog, speaking to it with such profound, gentle sincerity that it completely stopped the passing crew in their tracks, offering a brief, beautiful glimpse into the pure, untainted innocence that still heavily thrives within him, despite the toxic, hyper-commercialized industry he dominates. This incredible gentleness is a stark, jarring contrast to the intense, almost feral energy he unleashed during iconic performances like Singularity or Stigma, where he morphs into a completely different entity at the exact millisecond his foot touches the platform stage. Is it a mere performance, or is he finally letting the most guarded parts of his soul run wildly free under the safety of the spotlight? But perhaps the most tear-jerking revelation from the staff is his secret, agonizing fear of being left behind or forgotten. Despite being adored by millions, insiders reveal that Taehyung constantly seeks physical and emotional reassurance from his brothers, often sneaking into their beds during restless, anxiety-riddled nights just to feel the grounding presence of family.
Number 5. Jungkook. The Golden Prodigy's hidden scars, a terrifying race against his own shadow. When the massive LED screens illuminate the roaring stadiums across the globe, Jungkook is universally celebrated as the invincible Golden Maknae, an awe-inspiring, unstoppable force of nature who can effortlessly conquer absolutely any challenge thrown his way with infuriatingly perfect precision. But what exactly happens when the golden armor cracks and the impossible weight of millions of expectations crashes down upon the shoulders of a boy who was thrust into the unforgiving spotlight at just 15 years old? If you dare to ask the exhausted concert directors, the veteran cameramen, and the backstage medical staff what they truly think about BTS's youngest member, their immediate response is rarely about his flawless vocals or his gravity-defying dancing. Instead, they will speak in hushed, deeply reverent tones about a terrifyingly relentless work ethic that genuinely borders on extreme self-punishment, and a heart so unconditionally pure that it routinely breaks the hearts of everyone watching him. Have you ever wondered what the actual cost of being golden truly is? Behind the closed doors of their dressing rooms, the reality is devastatingly raw. Insiders have frequently leaked that Jungkook suffers from a crippling, agonizing fear of disappointing his older brothers and the loyal fans, leading him to push his physical body so far past the boundaries of normal human endurance that medical staff are often placed on high alert during every single major concert. During the notoriously grueling Wings tour, specifically the legendary stop in Chile, documentary crews and backstage managers witnessed a scene that still haunts the fandom and the staff to this very day. Jungkook was severely suffering from extreme altitude sickness and sheer physical exhaustion, literally gasping for air and stumbling blindly behind the massive LED screens the exact millisecond he stepped out of the fans' sight.
The security detail and medical team frantically rushed to him with respirators and oxygen tanks, desperately begging him to sit out the next song as he collapsed onto the cold floor in a pool of his own sweat, his face entirely drained of color. Yet, in a display of sheer, terrifying willpower that left the veteran crew completely speechless, Jungkook aggressively ripped the oxygen mask off his face, forced himself back onto his trembling feet, and sprinted back up the stage lift, instantaneously pasting on a blindingly bright, euphoric smile the moment the stage lights hit him. Why on earth would he willingly torture himself like this? Because in his mind, the thousands of fans who saved up their money to see him deserve absolute perfection, and anything less than destroying his own body to give them a flawless show is considered a deeply unforgivable personal failure. This astonishing, almost frightening level of dedication is not just reserved for the massive stage, it bleeds heavily into absolutely every single interaction he has with the invisible people working tirelessly behind the scenes. Broadcasting staff from the Idol Star Athletics Championships, ISAC, have repeatedly gone completely viral on Korean forums, not for praising his record-breaking athleticism, but for leaking incredibly touching, unfiltered stories of a young global superstar who, while his celebrity peers were resting or socializing in the VIP areas, quietly grabbed discarded plastic bags and walked around the massive stadium, meticulously picking up the trash, discarded snacks, and empty water bottles left behind by other idol groups. The cleaning staff were absolutely floored. This was not a desperate rookie trying to score cheap brownie points with the broadcasting directors. This was the main vocalist of the biggest musical act on the planet, performing the unglamorous duties of a janitor in complete, unassuming silence, just because he fundamentally believes that nobody should ever have to clean up after him. Flight attendants who have worked in the first-class cabins on their international private flights echo this exact same sentiment, universally naming Jungkook as one of the most painfully polite celebrities in existence, noting that he practically folds his heavily tattooed body in half with a deep, respectful 90-degree bow every single time someone hands him a simple glass of water or a warm towel. A deeply ingrained habit of extreme humility that he has stubbornly refused to let go of, despite achieving a level of wealth and global dominance that most humans cannot even begin to comprehend. But perhaps the most heart-wrenching revelation from the people who work closest with him is his profound, staggering emotional reliance on the 6 older members who practically raised him from a shy, fiercely introverted teenager into a global titan. A former executive producer once tearfully revealed the true, agonizing story behind Jungkook's deeply personal solo song, Begin, noting that during a highly emotional, closed-door company meeting where the members were encouraged to discuss their personal hardships and the immense psychological pressure of their skyrocketing fame, Jungkook, who is notoriously known for aggressively bottling up his own pain and never uttering a single complaint about his own severe physical exhaustion, suddenly broke down into violent, uncontrollable sobs. He completely shocked the entire room, including the hardened executives, when he devastatingly confessed that he didn't care at all about the grueling schedules, the suffocating lack of sleep, or the blinding physical pain of his mounting injuries. The absolute only thing that genuinely tore his fragile heart apart and made him want to completely give up was seeing his older brothers struggling mentally and physically, explicitly stating that his greatest, most unspeakable agony in life was watching them suffer and being entirely powerless to take their pain away. This staggering, sacrificial empathy is the true, unfiltered core of Jungkook's personality. He is a phenomenally gifted prodigy who effortlessly carries the weight of the entire world on his broad back, yet remains hyper-focused on making sure the ground is soft enough for his beloved Hyungs to walk on.
Bodyguards note that in massive, chaotic crowds at international airports, Jungkook instinctively shifts from the protected, pampered maknae into an impenetrable human shield, aggressively using his famously muscular physique to quietly block aggressive paparazzi and obsessed, dangerous stalkers from getting too close to the other members, acting as a silent, lethal enforcer who fiercely protects his chosen family at absolutely all costs. Music producers constantly marvel at his terrifying obsession with vocal perfection, revealing that Jungkook will often lock himself inside the suffocatingly small recording booth for an agonizing 8 to 10 hours straight, stubbornly refusing to eat or even take a sip of water until he absolutely nails a specific complex ad-lib or a sky-high note, heavily driven by an almost pathological need to constantly prove himself worthy of the golden maknae title that the public forced on his young shoulders. It is this hauntingly beautiful juxtaposition, the physically intimidating, heavily tattooed and pierced global superstar who effortlessly dominates the worldwide charts, seamlessly coexisting with the deeply sensitive, fiercely loyal boy who still cries out of pure, unadulterated guilt when his staff and brothers are tired, that leaves hardened industry insiders completely captivated and fiercely protective of him. The real Jungkook is not merely a perfectly manufactured pop idol or a lucky prodigy. He is a deeply self-sacrificing, brutally hard-working, and overwhelmingly humble soul who runs a terrifying, never-ending race against his own towering shadow, entirely willing to tear his own muscles and break his own bones just to ensure that the beautiful dream of BTS and the happiness of the 6 men who raised him never fades away into the dark.
Number 4. RM. The burden tightens silent tears, a crushing weight of genius and sacrifice. When the towering, incredibly commanding figure of Kim Namjoon steps up to the global podium at the United Nations General Assembly, flawlessly delivering a profound, world-changing speech in perfect English without a single tremor in his deep, resonant voice, the world rightfully sees RM as the untouchable, brilliant, and fiercely confident leader of the biggest musical phenomenon in modern history. But what exactly happens when the heavy diplomatic doors close, the suffocating suits come off, and the crushing, agonizing weight of carrying the dreams, lives, and entire futures of 6 other men on his broad shoulders finally catches up to a boy who never actually asked to be a global politician? If you delve deep into the secretive, highly guarded inner circles of HYB executives, the veteran translation teams, and the exhausted music producers who spend countless sleepless nights trapped inside his dimly lit genius laboratory known as Archive, the portrait they paint of Namjoon is so breathtakingly vulnerable, profoundly intellectual, and heartbreakingly self-sacrificial that it completely shatters the intimidating, bulletproof rapper image he projects to the masses. Have you ever paused to genuinely wonder what it physically and mentally costs a person to act as the sole, unbreakable bridge between massive corporate billionaires, an aggressively demanding Western music industry, and his 6 deeply sensitive brothers? Insiders constantly reveal that the pressure Namjoon silently absorbs on a daily basis is so unimaginably immense that it would completely break any normal human being. Longtime managers have chillingly confessed that during BTS's explosive, terrifyingly rapid rise to global dominance in the United States, when none of the other members could speak fluent English, Namjoon was essentially operating on 0 hours of sleep, frantically translating highly complex, rapid-fire English interviews in his head while simultaneously calculating the safest, most politically correct responses to fiercely protect his bandmates from vicious media traps, all while maintaining that famous reassuring dimpled smile.
Backstage camera operators have captured devastating behind-the-scenes moments where the exact millisecond an exhausting American talk show ends and the cameras finally cut. Namjoon literally collapses into his dressing room chair, burying his face into his trembling hands, entirely drained of his life force from the sheer paralyzing anxiety of being the absolute sole voice for the biggest group on the planet. During the legendary UNICEF Speak Yourself campaign, translators and UN diplomats were absolutely floored when they discovered that Namjoon had entirely rewritten his historical speech multiple times in the dead of night, desperately agonizing over every single English syllable because he was absolutely terrified of misrepresenting the marginalized youth who desperately looked up to him. He was literally trembling violently behind the massive podium, clutching the paper so hard his knuckles turned bone white. Yet the exact second the red broadcast light turned on, he swallowed his paralyzing fear and delivered a generational anthem of self-love that echoed across the globe. Yet he absolutely never, ever complains, violently swallowing his own immense stress because he believes with every fiber of his being that his primary duty on this earth is to act as an impenetrable shield for his members. This staggering, unwavering loyalty was most famously, and perhaps most cruelly, tested during the early, highly uncertain debut days in a legendary hidden camera prank orchestrated by Bang PD himself. When the terrifying company founder aggressively scolded a young, fiercely insecure Namjoon and coldly demanded him to choose between debuting as a highly successful solo hip-hop artist or staying with the struggling, seemingly doomed group called BTS, Namjoon didn't even hesitate for a single microscopic fraction of a second, instantly barking out BTS with a raw, desperate ferocity that genuinely shocked the executives in the room, proving that his legendary leadership is not just a company-assigned role, but a deeply ingrained, almost biological instinct to protect his chosen family. But beneath this terrifyingly intelligent, fiercely protective leader lies a deeply endearing, painfully clumsy, and incredibly sensitive young man whose 148 IQ mind is constantly moving at such a terrifying supersonic speed that he notoriously loses complete control of his own physical limbs. The styling assistants, makeup artists, and stage designers universally referred to him with deep, affectionate exasperation as the undeniable god of destruction. Insiders hysterically reveal that the company literally has a secret, designated budget specifically allocated just to replace the sunglasses he snaps in half, the expensive stage props he accidentally shatters, the stage outfits he unexplainably rips, and the countless pairs of wireless earbuds he loses on a monthly basis. Yet this highly destructive clumsiness is not just a funny quirk. Close friends and psychologists have noted that it is actually a deeply fascinating byproduct of a colossal genius whose brain is constantly overwhelmed with profound philosophical thoughts, complex lyricism, and deep existential dread, leaving absolutely zero mental capacity for mundane physical tasks like closing a door gently or remembering his own passport. His artistic process is notoriously grueling and profoundly isolating. Renowned producers constantly marvel at how Namjoon will completely lock himself away for days, surrounding himself with towering piles of heavy literature, obscure poetry, and contemporary art books, obsessively agonizing over a single microscopic metaphor or a clever double entendre just to ensure that his fans receive the absolute highest, most deeply respectful quality of lyricism possible. He fundamentally refuses to write empty, meaningless pop songs. He bleeds his own trauma, his terrifying battles with severe depression, and his complex, highly critical views of modern society into every single track, using his music as a desperate, crying plea for human connection. Moreover, his profound dedication to the arts and philanthropy is not merely a PR stunt. Gallery owners have leaked that Namjoon secretly donates hundreds of thousands of dollars to preserve ancient Korean artifacts and restore forgotten cultural texts, doing so with strict non-disclosure agreements because he genuinely believes that true art should belong to the people, not just the wealthy elite. He constantly reads thousands of heartbreakingly raw letters from fans dealing with severe mental illness, often referencing their exact words in his legendary concert-ending Ment speeches, proving that he doesn't just listen to ARMY, he literally absorbs their pain and weaves it into a protective musical armor for them to wear. Security details who have secretly shadowed him on his famous Namjooning trips, his quiet, solitary visits to empty art galleries, obscure museums, and quiet nature trails, note that he is heartbreakingly desperate for just a tiny, fleeting slice of normalcy. They reveal that despite his jaw-dropping, astronomical wealth, he strongly prefers riding an old bicycle through the rain or sitting completely alone on a dusty park bench, reading a battered paperback novel, strictly ordering his massive security team to stay far back in the shadows so he doesn't disturb the general public. Tour guides and museum curators across the globe have repeatedly taken to the internet to express their absolute shock at his staggering humility and profound respect. Unlike other mega-celebrities who demand entire museums to be completely shut down for their private viewing, Namjoon absolutely insists on buying a regular ticket, quietly waiting in line like everyone else, and passionately discussing the intricate historical brushstrokes of forgotten painters with the staff, leaving them completely mesmerized by his profound, gentle soul.
Number 3. J-Hope, the Sunshine's Hidden Shadows, a terrifyingly strict dance commander. When the stadium erupts into deafening cheers and the blinding spotlights hit the stage, Jungkook, universally adored by millions as J-Hope, instantly radiates an unparalleled, blindingly bright energy, flawlessly living up to his famous moniker as the eternal sunshine and the ultimate mood maker of BTS. But what exactly happens when the cameras stop rolling, the infectious laughter fades, and the grueling, bone-crushing dance rehearsals actually begin? If you dare to ask the exhausted backup dancers, the veteran choreographers, and even his own bandmates what they truly think about J-Hope behind the tightly locked doors of the HYBE practice rooms, their answers will completely shatter the bubbly, happy-lucky illusion, revealing a terrifyingly strict, fiercely observant, and deeply complex mastermind who operates with the chilling precision of an elite military commander. Have you ever wondered what it takes to actually maintain the title of the best dance crew in the entire global music industry? Insiders and former big-hit staff members constantly speak of a legendary, almost mythical phenomenon known exclusively among the crew as the Jungkook stare, a sudden, staggering shift in his entire demeanor, where his trademark heart-shaped smile completely vanishes, his eyes turn incredibly dark and piercing, and the temperature in the room seemingly drops by 10 degrees, the exact millisecond a single backup dancer misses a beat or a member's foot is placed even a fraction of an inch out of formation. While RM is the undisputed philosophical and political leader of the group, industry veterans universally acknowledge J-Hope as the absolute, unquestionable shadow leader, the iron-fisted dance captain who ruthlessly drives the physical execution of their legendary performances to a point of terrifying, inhumane perfection. Choreographers have leaked astonishing stories of J-Hope casually pausing a chaotic, fast-paced rehearsal video featuring over 40 different backup dancers, instantly pointing out a microscopic synchronization error in the very back row that even the professional dance instructors completely missed. He doesn't need to yell or throw a tantrum to command absolute obedience. He simply locks eyes with the offending dancer through the massive practice room mirror, emitting an aura so intensely intimidating that veteran dancers have literally confessed to breaking out in cold sweats and violently shaking under his relentless gaze.
This staggering, unwavering demand for absolute perfection is not born out of arrogance, but rather a deeply ingrained, almost agonizing sense of immense responsibility to protect the group's hard-earned legacy. He knows that a single sloppy performance could instantly shatter the empire they bled to build, so he willingly takes on the heavy, unpopular role of the strict disciplinarian, constantly pushing his own brothers to the absolute brink of physical exhaustion because he believes they are capable of achieving absolute greatness. However, the true, heartbreaking tragedy of being the designated sunshine of the group is the suffocating, unspoken rule that you are absolutely never allowed to let the clouds roll in. Psychological experts and close staff members have frequently noted that J-Hope carries an unbelievably heavy emotional burden, constantly suppressing his own severe exhaustion, deep personal anxieties, and physical pain just to ensure that the morale of the group never drops. Backstage medical teams have vividly recounted deeply disturbing moments during massive world tours where J-Hope was suffering from agonizing muscle cramps, severe dehydration, and debilitating fatigue, literally collapsing into the arms of the security staff the moment the stage lift lowered him into the darkness. Yet the exact second a younger member like Jimin or Jungkook walked past looking worried, J-Hope would violently force himself to stand up, miraculously pasting a blindingly loud, energetic smile onto his pale face and aggressively hyping them up, completely refusing to let his own suffering infect the rest of the team. He fundamentally views his own happiness as a crucial utilitarian tool for the group's survival. If J-Hope falls, the entire emotional foundation of BTS crumbles with him. This profound, self-sacrificial love extends far beyond just his bandmates, bleeding heavily into his interactions with the lowest-ranking, invisible staff members who tirelessly work behind the scenes. Broadcasting station producers and massive award show directors continuously name J-Hope as the absolute gold standard of professional celebrity behavior, frequently leaking heartwarming stories of his incredible, almost supernatural memory. Despite meeting thousands of different people a year, J-Hope makes a deliberate, highly calculated effort to memorize the exact names, faces, and even the minor personal details of the rookie camera operators, the exhausted lighting assistants, and the junior makeup artists, loudly and cheerfully greeting them by name when he walks into a chaotic broadcasting hall, instantly making them feel deeply valued and seen in an industry that notoriously treats them like entirely replaceable cogs in a machine. Furthermore, music video directors have publicly testified that during freezing, grueling outdoor shoots that stretch deep into the early hours of the morning, J-Hope is always the very last artist to leave the set. He meticulously walks through the muddy, freezing locations to personally bow to and thank every single staff member, often secretly coordinating with his managers to have massive coffee trucks and premium hot meals suddenly delivered to the exhausted crew, paying the entire thing out of his own pocket while aggressively demanding that his name not be attached to the donation. His historic, groundbreaking solo headline performance at Lollapalooza, famously dubbed Hobbypalooza by millions of fans, finally gave the global public a highly anticipated, unfiltered glimpse into the dark, incredibly intense artist that his closest insiders have known for years. Completely stripped of his 6 brothers and the brightly colored pop star aesthetic, J-Hope shockingly unleashed a raw, heavily grunge-inspired, almost demonic stage presence that completely obliterated his sunshine stereotype, violently screaming his lyrics and commanding a massive crowd of over 100,000 people with the fierce, untouchable swagger of a veteran rock god. Behind the scenes of that legendary festival, his solo management team revealed that he barely slept for over a month, physically making himself sick with anxiety and obsessively micromanaging absolutely every single aspect of the stage production, the live band arrangements, and the complex lighting cues, proving that beneath the happy exterior lies a monstrously ambitious, deeply serious musical genius who absolutely refuses to settle for mediocrity. In the recording studio, producers note that his approach to creating music is drastically different from the chaotic, emotional outpourings of the other rappers. He treats his music production with the exact same chilling, clinical precision he applies to his dancing, meticulously organizing his intricate beats, perfectly stacking his complex vocal layers, and obsessively analyzing the massive cultural impact of his lyrics before he ever lets a single track see the light of day. He is the quiet, highly calculated anchor who constantly balances RM's deep philosophical burdens and Suga's raw, aggressive emotional intensity, seamlessly bridging the gap between the rap line and the vocal line with a terrifyingly high level of emotional intelligence that often goes completely unnoticed by the general public. He is fiercely protective, fiercely loyal, and fiercely demanding, constantly setting his own massive soul on fire just to provide a warm, comforting light for everyone else to gather around. The real Jungkook Sok is not just a happy, smiling caricature or a simple mood maker. He is a breathtakingly brilliant, iron-willed perfectionist who aggressively masks his own profound suffering behind a beautiful, infectious laugh, acting as the unshakable, heavily calloused backbone of the biggest group on the planet.
Number 2. Suga, the stone-cold producer's bleeding heart, a hidden angel in the shadows. When the heavy bass abruptly drops and the fiery pyrotechnics violently explode across the massive stadium stages, Min Yoongi, globally feared and universally revered as Suga or the aggressively fierce August D, effortlessly projects the deeply intimidating, untouchable aura of a stone-cold, savage rap god who absolutely does not care about a single opinion in the world. But what exactly happens when the deafening hip-hop beats finally fade into silence and the cameras turn away from his notoriously unbothered, stoic resting face? If you dare to pierce through the heavy, guarded walls of the Hive building and speak directly to the veteran recording engineers, the long-term stylists, and the exhausted security details who have silently shadowed him for over a decade, they will instantly and completely shatter this icy illusion, revealing a breathtakingly soft, deeply traumatized, and overwhelmingly generous soul who secretly operates as the ultimate, silent guardian angel of BTS. Have you ever wondered why the very staff members who initially found him terrifying are the ones who end up fiercely protecting him the most? Insiders and former management officials playfully yet deeply affectionately describe Suga as the absolute ultimate epitome of a tsundere, a traditional Japanese character archetype for someone who appears outwardly cold, brutally blunt, and entirely unapproachable, but secretly possesses an incredibly warm, fiercely loyal, and fiercely protective heart. Backstage coordinators have leaked countless deeply endearing stories of Yoongi casually walking past a deeply exhausted, desperately thirsty junior staff member and abruptly shoving an ice-cold bottle of water directly into their chest without ever making a single ounce of eye contact or stopping his rapid stride, swiftly disappearing down the hallway before they could even utter a confused word of thanks. He absolutely despises the heavy, awkward burden of verbal gratitude, heavily preferring his profound acts of love to remain entirely invisible, almost as if he is genuinely embarrassed by his own staggering capacity for kindness. This silent, invisible generosity famously reached legendary proportions during the early, highly unstable debut years, when the group was completely broke and living in a cramped, suffocatingly tiny one-room dorm. A former big-hit producer tearfully revealed that Yoongi, who was surviving on absolutely nothing but cheap ramen and fiercely struggling with severe agonizing hunger himself, secretly used his incredibly meager, hard-earned royalties from writing underground beats to completely pay for a sick trainee's expensive hospital bills and massive college tuition, aggressively threatening the company executives to never ever tell the trainee where the life-saving money actually came from. But to truly, fundamentally understand the profound, beautiful depth of Min Yoongi's heavily guarded heart, one must look deep into the dark, heavily scarred history of his devastating physical and mental trauma.
Long before he was a billionaire global icon, he was a desperately poor, starving underground rapper who violently shattered his shoulder in a brutal, horrific traffic accident while working secretly as a motorcycle delivery boy just to pay his rent. Industry insiders who were present during those terrifying early years noted that Yoongi was so incredibly paralyzed by the fear that the company would instantly fire him for being damaged goods that he aggressively lied to absolutely everyone, silently enduring unimaginable, bone-crushing physical agony for years, manually popping his dislocated shoulder back into its socket in the dark, suffocating bathroom stalls before going out onto the stage to flawlessly execute insanely demanding, highly acrobatic hip-hop choreography with a blinding, forced smile. When the painful truth finally leaked and he was forced to undergo massive, highly invasive shoulder surgery years later, the surgical team and physical therapists were absolutely horrified and deeply speechless, literally stating to the press that they had absolutely no idea how a human being could possibly withstand that level of excruciating, constant nerve pain for 7 entire years without completely losing their mind, let alone while executing intense, perfectly synchronized dancing in front of millions of people. This terrifying, almost inhumane tolerance for physical suffering is deeply mirrored in his staggering, overwhelming capacity to absorb intense emotional pain. Inside his famous, heavily fortified recording studio, known globally as Genius Lab, Yoongi acts as the silent, heavily calloused emotional anchor for the entire group. While the other members might loudly express their chaotic frustrations, Yoongi silently absorbs the massive, crushing pressure of the industry, channeling his severe, agonizing battles with clinical depression, crippling social anxiety, and deep existential dread into some of the most profoundly raw, intensely healing hip-hop music ever created in the modern era. Close producers note that Yoongi will sit entirely alone in the pitch-black darkness of his studio for days on end, ruthlessly tearing his own soul apart and bleeding his deepest, most horrifying traumas onto the microphone, just so that millions of broken, heavily marginalized fans across the globe can listen to his lyrics and finally feel like they are not entirely alone in their devastating suffering. He fundamentally uses his own dark, agonizing scars as a desperate, powerful beacon of hope for the voiceless, heavily sacrificing his own mental peace to violently fight against the notoriously strict, highly conservative society that desperately tries to suppress open conversations about mental health. But perhaps the most tear-jerking, profoundly beautiful revelation from his closest insiders is his staggering, unwavering devotion to his 6 brothers, a fierce, silent love that genuinely borders on the absolute sacred. While RM confidently leads the group from the front and H-Hope loudly motivates them from the center, Yoongi operates exclusively from the deep, protective shadows, quietly picking up the shattered pieces whenever the boys emotionally or physically break down. During a highly grueling overseas tour, when H-Hope became violently ill in the middle of the night, hotel staff shockingly revealed that Yoongi didn't call the manager or panic. He silently walked into H-Hope's room, forcefully took him to the emergency room in a private taxi, and sat completely awake in a hard plastic chair by his hospital bed for over 10 exhausting hours, quietly paying the massive medical bill in cash and entirely refusing to leave the sterile room until he knew for an absolute fact that his brother was safe. The members themselves famously revealed the existence of a legendary, deeply emotional text message that Yoongi once sent to an incredibly lost, fiercely struggling Jungkook and Taehyung during a dark period when the group was on the absolute brink of violently disbanding due to the crushing, unbearable pressure of their sudden global fame. The deeply uncharacteristic, heartbreakingly long message simply ended with the shockingly rare words, "I love you," a profound, incredibly raw confession that caused the 2 youngest members to completely break down and violently sob for over 10 minutes, ultimately acting as the powerful emotional glue that convinced the entire group to stay together and fight another day.
The real Min Yoongi is a breathtaking, utterly devastating paradox, a fiercely aggressive, savagely intelligent rap god who spits absolute fire at his vicious haters, seamlessly coexisting with a deeply soft, overwhelmingly empathetic, and fiercely loyal guardian angel who quietly fixes the broken door handles in the chaotic dorm, silently cooks massive, hearty meals for his brothers on their birthdays, and secretly donates hundreds of thousands of dollars to pediatric cancer wards without taking a single ounce of public credit.
Number 1. Jin, the master of illusion, a heartbreaking sacrifice for his brother's smiles. When the blinding flashbulbs erupt on the most prestigious global red carpets and the intensely suffocating pressure of the Western media threatens to entirely swallow the group whole, the world instinctively looks to the oldest member, Kim Sok-jin, universally adored as worldwide handsome, who effortlessly diffuses the agonizingly awkward tension with a wildly confident flying kiss and an infectious windshield wiper laugh. But what exactly happens when the cameras finally stop rolling and the heavy, exhausting reality of being the eldest brother of the biggest musical empire on the planet sets in? If you sit down with the veteran bodyguards, the exhausted backstage crew, and the highly guarded big-hit executives who have watched him grow since he was just a confused, wildly handsome college student scouted purely for his looks, they will instantly tear down this brilliantly crafted, happy-go-lucky facade, revealing a breathtakingly intelligent, fiercely protective, and deeply self-sacrificial mastermind who aggressively uses his own silly, carefree persona as a powerful, impenetrable shield to absorb the immense psychological pressure directed at his 6 younger brothers. Have you ever paused to genuinely wonder just how much absolute, staggering emotional intelligence it takes for an older Korean man to willingly throw away his own pride and act like a massive, goofy fool just to ensure his younger bandmates never feel the terrifying, suffocating weight of their own global fame? In the notoriously strict, highly conservative Korean society, where age dictates an ironclad hierarchy of absolute respect and authority, insiders universally marvel at the deeply profound, groundbreaking sacrifice Jin made the exact moment BTS was formed. Instead of fiercely demanding respect and ruling the group with an iron fist like most traditional oldest members in the K-pop industry, Sok-jin aggressively chose to entirely shatter the hierarchy, actively encouraging the younger members to playfully mock him, jump on him, and treat him as an absolute equal, fundamentally creating the incredibly rare family-like dynamic that ultimately saved BTS from completely imploding under the crushing pressure of the industry. He famously stated that if he acts young, his soul will stay young, but psychologists and close staff members have repeatedly noted that this is a highly calculated, deeply selfless emotional tactic to ensure that leaders like RM and prodigies like Jungkook never feel intimidated or suffocated by his seniority. Behind the closed doors of their chaotic dorms and highly guarded green rooms, staff members frequently leak heartwarming, deeply touching stories of Jin acting as the silent, unshakable financial and emotional provider during their devastatingly poor, terrifying debut days. Veteran managers fondly recall how Sok-jin, who came from a relatively comfortable background compared to the others, would secretly steal expensive ingredients from his own parents' house just to cook massive hearty meals for the starving, fiercely struggling teenage members, silently paying for their cramped dinners and gently slipping his own hard-earned allowance into their pockets without ever asking for a single ounce of gratitude. But beneath this fiercely protective, warm-hearted older brother figure lies a deeply guarded, agonizingly painful insecurity that he has brutally fought against in absolute silence for over a decade. When Sok-jin was unexpectedly scouted off the street, he had absolutely zero background in singing or dancing. He was an acting major who was brutally thrust into a highly competitive, terrifyingly rigorous idol training system alongside underground rap gods and street dance champions, completely paralyzing him with the agonizing fear that he was nothing more than a pretty useless face that would ultimately drag the brilliant group down into failure.
Choreographers and vocal coaches have tearfully revealed the devastating, completely hidden reality of Jin's legendary work ethic. While the natural prodigies of the group were able to effortlessly memorize complex routines in just a few hours, Jin would quietly lock himself in the suffocatingly small, mirror-lined practice rooms until the sun came up, brutally and obsessively drilling the exact same intricate footwork hundreds of thousands of times until his knees violently bruised and his feet literally bled, desperately fighting a terrifying, never-ending battle against his own physical limitations just to ensure he didn't ruin the flawless synchronization of the team. He fundamentally refuses to let the fans or even his own members see him struggle, aggressively swallowing his massive physical exhaustion and intense mental fatigue to project an aura of unshakable confidence, heavily relying on his own sheer terrifying willpower to morph himself from an awkward actor into a highly respected, absolute powerhouse vocalist capable of flawlessly belting out massive, sky-high notes in legendary stadium anthems. This staggering, entirely self-made evolution is often cited by veteran industry insiders as one of the most deeply inspiring, jaw-dropping miracles in modern pop history, proving that Seokjin is not just a handsome visual, but a monstrously dedicated artist who literally built his own talent from scratch out of pure, unadulterated love for his bandmates. Beyond his brutal work ethic, his interactions with the invisible, heavily overworked staff members paint a beautiful portrait of a man who possesses a profound, staggering level of basic human decency that has never once wavered, despite his astronomical billionaire status. Broadcasting directors constantly leak that Jin is famously known as the absolute king of manners in the notoriously toxic entertainment industry, consistently going completely out of his way to bow deeply and strike up genuine warm conversations with the lowest-ranking lighting assistants and exhausted janitors, deliberately using his massive, highly influential presence to aggressively shut down any disrespectful behavior from other celebrities or arrogant executives in the room. He is fiercely allergic to heavy, suffocating atmospheres, often utilizing his razor-sharp wit and famously terrible dad jokes not just for cheap laughs, but as a brilliant, highly effective psychological tool to instantly break the crippling tension in a terrifyingly strict boardroom or a high-stakes television set, allowing his severely anxious brothers to finally take a deep breath and relax behind his broad, protective shoulders. His deep, highly secretive philanthropy is equally as staggering. While he loudly brags about his handsome face for comedic effect, he aggressively hid his massive, multi-million-dollar donations to the UNICEF Honors Club for years, only allowing the organization to finally release the information because he fundamentally believed that good influence should be shared to grow, heavily proving that his loud, boisterous public persona is entirely secondary to his deeply quiet, profoundly humble core. The real Kim Seok-jin is the ultimate, breathtaking master of illusion. He flawlessly plays the wildly confident, deeply silly jester to absolutely perfectly mask the fiercely intelligent, overwhelmingly empathetic, and brutally hard-working guardian who silently holds the entire emotional foundation of BTS together with his bare, heavily blistered hands. When the leaders are entirely drained and the prodigies are violently breaking down, it is the oldest brother who quietly steps out of the shadows, wrapping his broad, unshakable shoulders around the group and absorbing the terrifying impact of the world so they can continue to fly. So the absolute next time you find yourself aggressively laughing at his chaotic antics or swooning over his flawless, globally recognized visuals, aggressively remember the brutally bruised knees, the agonizingly long, lonely nights in the practice room, the deeply calculated sacrifices of his own pride, and the profound, beautiful strength it takes to constantly be the brightest, most unwavering light for 6 other men. This is not just the story of a handsome pop star. This is the magnificent, deeply tear-jerking saga of a ferociously devoted older brother who willingly painted himself as a fool just to secretly build an invincible, beautiful kingdom for the family he unconditionally loves far more than his own life.